Black Panther's in theaters now, which means we can have a full-on spoiler talk. Let's do it. I'm Dan Murrell, and I am joined by...
Markeia McCarty.
Markeia,
yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yes, absolutely. We're going to talk Black Panther, so I'm here any day, every day, especially for Black Panther.
You have been, I was talking about it this morning, like when we need a Marvel expert, you're like one of the 3 people on our speed dial. So when we're talking about who we're going to bring in for the spoiler review, I'm like, obviously somebody who knows their Marvel stuff. And that's you. You know so much more about the lore of this character than 98% of, I think, even MCU fans. I haven't had a chance to review the movie. Roth Cornett and Daniel Radford reviewed it a couple weeks ago when the embargo dropped. But I was curious, just general thoughts. What did you think about it and overall?
Okay, general thoughts. And keeping in mind that I'm a person that's coming from canon with it. I've grown up with Black Panther kind of a thing, and there are different runs that go with it. Everything from, it starts with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. There's a McGregor run in there, jungle action. And then Christopher Priest run, which is my absolute favorite, the one that I recommend to everybody. And then, it goes on. Jason Aaron has a thing in there with Secret Invasion, Reginald Hudlin, and of course, Ta-Nehisi Coates and Roxanne Gay. I legitimately feel that Ryan Coogler cherry picked the best out of all of these runs and then put them into this beautiful, it is epic. It is epic. Not only is it epic in a damn good movie, but it makes sense. I mean, plot-wise, and everybody is a fully realized character within it.
Well, I agree with you. It is a damn good movie. And it's a movie that I liked a lot. It is easily, the first question that everyone always asks is, where do you rank it in the MCU? It's I don't know. I don't know where I rank most movies in the MCU. It's 1 through whatever. But I will say it was in the top tier of the 4 or 5 best that they've ever made. And I think it is because of what you said, is there's a kind of a base of what is in a superhero movie. And I think that they live and fall based on what more do you do with that? Do you kind of do a Thor Dark World thing? Which I didn't hate that movie, but it didn't do much other than here's a guy who wants to destroy something and you got to fight him.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much else to it. Or do you use that and kind of build on it? And I thought that this movie did so much building on top of that and adding layer and depth and believability to its characters, which I think is what makes a great movie in general, not just a great superhero movie.
Yes, and I love that you brought up layers because, oh my God, this guy, Ryan Coogler, he's a parfait on top of a parfait on top of another one. Because the layers with it, I mean, yes, you have, like you said, you have this superhero movie, but you also have this social commentary. You also have this beautiful inclusion that happens with this world where you have, for instance, Nakia as a Wakandan spy posing as a Nigerian heiress, and Busan speaking Korean. I mean, you have this, so you also have South Korea's involved in there. Then you have the dark underbelly that's gambling in South Korea. I mean, and then not only just that, and you brought up female characters, women characters. Oh my God, how much did you love Shuri?
I love Shuri. Shuri was great. But for me, my favorite character, not just female character, my favorite character in this movie as far as write a movie and buy me a ticket was Denai Guerrera. I loved her in this movie.
Yes.
I thought she was so amazing. I thought everything you need to know about her character, you knew within the first 2 minutes of screen time. I thought that she brought such a force and strength. And what I feel like has been kind of wasted with her on The Walking Dead, particularly recently, is she has such a presence and just a steely, I will kick your ass. And I feel like they haven't really been taking advantage of that on The Walking Dead as much as they could have. They haven't really given her character that much other than just, she's tough.
Yeah.
And this movie did that, and I loved her. She was my favorite.
The thing that I loved about this movie with what they did with Denai is that they gave her humor, or they let her have humor. I mean, that one scene when it was in Busan, it was the car chase, and it's Claw, and they're shooting at the car, and it's her and Nakia, and she's just like, guns. How primitive. And then climbs out on top of the car to throw a vibranium spear at this car. But it's just her side eye says so much. Her smile and be like, don't freeze.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, he froze.
He froze. But going back to Shuri, which you mentioned, another thing that I love is like, how great is it that you have a young, and it's like they're nailing it with between Peter Parker and Shuri, a young kid who's just into science and technology and inventing things, and like is good at it, and I think that's great to have a young character in a movie who's not just kind of the disaffected teen or not just there to be put in danger, but is like, I got this, and is good at stuff that adults aren't good at, and can kind of set that example.
Yeah, I mean, she's absolutely fantastic, especially with that because she has so much dimension to her. Like, I love that you brought up Peter Parker with it. And when you see Tom Holland as Peter Parker, you feel like this is actually Peter Parker. Not, just saying Peter Parker's past.
Right.
But sometimes you'd have, in my opinion, you'd have an actor that would be a good Peter Parker, but not necessarily a good Spider-Man.
Right.
And then someone who's a great Spider-Man, but is kind of too cool to be Peter Parker.
We call that Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that kind of thing. But yeah, with Tom Holland, they hit that sweet spot. With Letitia Wright for Shuri, they hit that sweet spot of the depiction of her character and then the actress herself. Because like she's a STEM. She's sciences, technology, engineering, mathematics. She's all of that. And she's funny. And she's a younger sibling that you can completely relate to. I mean, when she was all, what are those? It's like when T'Challa's wearing dad sandals. I mean, I could not even stop. And it is going to be so difficult for me not to use the term colonizer.
Colonizer, yeah.
That was perfect.
Well, this is a spoiler review, but extra spoiler alert, because I want to go into very in depth about this. So from here on out, super ultra hardcore spoilers. Because I want to go into Michael B. Jordan and Eric and what they do with his character. And there's always been talk of the villain problem in the MCU. What I loved about Michael B. Jordan's character was it wasn't just a generic. It wasn't even like they could have even gone just the route of just like, hey, I'm this guy that should have ascended to the throne and I want it. And it's not even that. What I loved is that they gave him so much depth and so much his motivation, and they did it on both sides. This is what I love about movies that aren't afraid to treat their audiences like they're smart and they can understand things, which is that the good guys aren't all good. And the bad guys have motivations that you can understand. It's like Wakanda, you see T'Challa struggling with the idea of like Wakanda has been hiding these good things from the world. And they have done terrible things in their past. And aren't they complicit in some of these terrible things that have happened because they could have helped and they didn't?
Absolutely.
And then Eric, who's, it's intention versus action. His goal is essentially just a complete takeover of the world, but it's motivated by the fact that it's just like, no, I'm righting an injustice. I'm righting a wrong. I've seen what happens in society firsthand, and I want to right that. But he goes so far the other way that it's like, I understand why he's angry and why he wants to do these things, but his actions aren't something that I can condone. And I love that it's not just simplified. It's very complex. That's what I love that.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And the thing of it is that they even kept it canon with like Eric Killmonger. Well, they had some, finagling and everything, making him Eric Stevens, making him American Black Ops and so on and so forth. But yes, like in the comics, T'Challa can't beat Killmonger. In fact, Killmonger became Black Panther because he beat T'Challa in ritual combat, which they even had, in this. And, you can spend all the time in the world building up a really great hero, but like you were saying, if you don't have a Black Mirror reflection of that hero in your villain, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
You just make cannon fodder for this hero, and we're going to sit here and have to get through that. Something with Eric Killmonger. I mean, and let's talk about layers with that.
Yeah. For
him to, for instance, do the ritualized scarification, and then that comes from Africa itself. For him he didn't know Africa. He was born in America, raised in Oakland, kind of a thing. For that character to choose that particular scarification to depict how many lives he had taken to get to that point of him finally getting the throne, that is amazing. And wait, we said this is super spoilery. So
this is all spoilers.
Okay, I can't believe they killed Eric Killmonger. I can't believe it. And then also, he had such an epic ending line
Mm-hmm.
that there was no other way that they could have done that character. For him to bring up, and this is what I'm saying about how it's so many layers with this movie.
Yeah.
For him to bring up that he would have been one of the ones that jumped all over the side of the slave ship,
Mm-hmm.
that he would choose death over bondage. Both times that I've seen the movie twice now, I ugly cried, because that's something that you don't get in mainstream. That's one of those really hard questions and hard truths to like be butted up against. And then you have to ask yourself, what would I have done? And don't know. And I'm so glad I don't have to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and just the idea of the fact that the movie really doesn't flinch when it takes on, I mean, 'cause when you break it down, it is about we're used to, with comic movies in general, somebody coming from the sky who wants to take over the world, and they're gonna throw some lightning or whatever at somebody, and then they get defeated.
Swirling
portals and and liquids and stuff, whatever.
There you go.
But you go from that, which even Marvel is guilty of, to and it's a trend, because Michael Keaton in Spider-Man: Homecoming is essentially motivated by the kind of corporatization and economic isolation of blue-collar workers, which is like, wow, okay, that's a pretty current issue. And then
they legitimately took his job.
Yeah, they took his job, and the good guys took his job.
Yeah,
Tony Stark took his job. Yeah,
and then didn't leave him any other recourse. Well, maybe there was other recourse, but Black Mirror reflection of a hero.
Exactly. And then now you have with Eric Killmonger, when you break down, I mean, his plan is essentially an uprising. Some would call it a genocide. It's certainly a motivation of this kind of, I'm going to right a historical wrong.
Basically, he kind of had the cure for racism, but that doesn't mean it's good.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean with like intent versus action. And that's one of the first times I've seen them really tackle a hero with just like their intention.
Yeah, it's
the
like he was gonna
is
right wrongs with enforceable oppression.
Yeah.
Like with a superior power. And then, that's kind of the history of our world. The people with the bigger, better weapons win, and then they write history saying, hey, we weren't that bad.
Right. And then for the movie itself, that line of just like, you're so blind, you can't even see that you're becoming what you're fighting against. And it's so refreshing to see a comic book movie like this.
That's what it is.
But treat a villain, like give them motivations. It's just like, hey, I see where you're coming from, and I certainly can't agree with what you're doing, but I can agree that guy's not right either. And where's this place in the middle?
Yeah, and then you've got this kind of Game of Thrones-esque thing happening with the family, where it's like, okay, so T'Challa and Eric Killmonger, all right, cool. Oh, wait, T'Chaka murdered N'Jobu, who's the father of Eric Killmonger. Okay, so, yeah... So their father killed your uncle,
right? So he does have a claim.
Yeah. Oh, it's really fun in that way that it's a hot mess.
Yeah.
Like it's a family hot mess.
Yeah.
And I adore that. And then of course, oh my God, Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
Angela Bassett as Ramonda. The cast that they have for Black Panther is legitimately out of this world.
Every single person. No, I mean, Forrest Whitaker, Angela Bassett, everyone that we talked about so far.
Andy Serkis is a maniacal treasure.
He is. He is. I'm curious to get your take, because there were a few things that I thought, I mean, that kind of, not that I didn't like, but there are a few things I was like, okay. I thought it was a little slow out of the gate.
No movie's perfect.
No movie's perfect.
Not even Black Panther. No movie's perfect. I love it, but no movie is perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, I thought it was a little slow out of the gate. In the third act, I thought you fell into some of those conventions of like you have to have a big fight between the good guy and the bad guy, and the train and the rhinos and the big fight. It's like, it's fun, but it's like, okay. But Andy Serkis was one that is just like, it's both sides. Like, I thought he was great.
He was fantastic.
He was great, but I felt like that character, it felt like a bit of a remnant from Age of Ultron, where it's like we set him up a few years ago, and it's like, we kind of have to pay him off in this movie, but I did sort of also feel like, he was there to kind of cackle and have fun, and then it's like, okay, he's out of the way. Let's going with what we're doing.
Move on then. Yeah, I can definitely. That's a really good criticism for it, because I mean, when you think of the two characters that traveled out of that existed before and then came into this, I'm not including Io or. It's either Io or Ao. I'm not including her, Florence Kasamba's character. Move or be moved. I'm not including her in that. So with Andy Serkis and Chadwick Boseman, they're coming off a Civil War. There are other movies, and there are a certain type of character there that it kind of doesn't jibe as well with what Black Panther sets up. And what I mean by that is, like you said with Andy Serkis, I kind of agree with you there. It's just, I think he would have been different if he had been Ryan's the entire time, kind of a thing. And like with Chadwick's character, for instance, during the throne scene, when Eric Killmonger is like, ask me who I am, ask me who I am, ask me who I am, kind of a thing. And Chadwick knows who he is, but he's playing it so low, and it's very low. Like to the point where it kind of takes you out of it. Well, it took me out of it a little bit because then I'm like, he's basically going to tell everybody in this room that your father killed his father. Yeah. That is about to come out. Why are you being so chill?
You know that you're about to get punched in the face. Like you're not putting you're not kind of putting your guard up because you know someone's about to clock you in the jaw.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, so there's that. But where was this, T'Challa that was going after Zemo and going after, Sebastian?
Right.
Not Sebastian. Sorry, let me call him by his Bucky.
Seb.
Yeah.
Seb.
So going after him, it's like, where was that guy?
Well, it's interesting. That's the other thing that I kind of wrote down was, and it's not, I didn't really fault Chadwick Boseman. I thought that his performance was great, but I felt also that in a weird kind of way, for me, Black Panther was kind of the least interesting character in the movie. I was so much more invested in everyone around him, and I thought they were all, and I think it's just, you have to introduce so many people that I think part of when you're writing it, part of the convention has to be that you have to bounce them off of your main character, who's Black Panther, to show their character traits. Like the what are those? Like you have to kind of let Letitia Wright shine in that scene to establish her character. You have to let Denai Guerrero shine to establish her character. You have to let Michael B. Jordan shine in a scene to establish that character. But I think part of that is that in the process, you're sort of sidelining your main character because you have to introduce all of these other people. And so that was part of me. It was like, while I thought Chadwick Boseman was great and gave a great performance, in a lot of ways, I thought he was kind of the character that was there for everyone else to bounce off of and motivate. And so I feel like, this could have been a little more Black Panther centric in the sense of just like he's like the sixth or seventh thing that I think about when I think about what I loved about this movie. It's like, oh, Killmonger's great and the plan was great and all this stuff. It's like, oh, and Chadwick Boseman was good too.
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying, and it's an excellent point actually. The way that I was thinking about it, and when I think of the things that I love about it, my first one is Shuri, and then probably Denai, and then probably just the general Afrofuturism of everything, and so on and so forth. With him, I guess I keep it in mind that this is the first time that we've had a character of this type. This is a king. This is a king in a superhero world. And we haven't had that. We've had, a single super soldier that, government uses him as a shill, buy war bonds, kind of thing. We've had a, man in a cave existing alone with the butler. But we haven't had someone who has all of the responsibility, and perhaps with T'Challa, he has to be defined by the country that he runs, or for that his close counsel, the people around him. I mean, the way that they treat him says a lot about his character, because you have these incredibly powerful people that surround him with this counsel, with Ramonda, with W'Kabi, Daniel Kaluuya's character, and so on. Like these are some pretty powerful people with powerful opinions, and for them to defer to him when eventually they don't defer to Eric Killmonger, that does say it's kind of something unspoken. But I totally get what you're saying too.
I'm curious your take on, as we speak, we're filming this the day before the movie comes out, but we'll probably know this weekend how it does. I mean, financially, it's going to be, everything that we're reading is going to be a huge opening. I'm curious your take on this, because this is obviously a big moment in superheroes, just because it's going to be one of the biggest superhero movie openings of all time. But I think tied to that, and something that you can't separate really, is that this is a huge cultural moment in the sense that, we just did the Honest trailer for Blade, and we talked about the fact that there have been black-led superhero movies before, Blade and Meteor Man, and these movies have come out. But Blank Man, exactly.
Had to say it.
How could we forgot Blank Man? Spawn, Steel,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is, you can't deny the first time that it's kind of been not just a black lead character, but it is so deeply rooted in not just African American culture, but also African culture and the black experience, and has so much to say about society. Seeing it kind of being so mass marketed, where do you think that leads us telling stories about not just black culture, but other cultures in the future? Do you think this is going to open up the opportunities to people that say it's a great story, but it's not a mass market movie. We could never sell that kind of thing to an audience. Do you think that'll help kind of break some of those barriers down?
I think it's going to do what Iron Man did, where it's just going to kind of explode the universe out. And actually, you can even backtrack it even further than that. I think it's going to do what Blade did, which that came out in 1998, and that was a decade before Iron Man existed for the MCU.
Right.
And basically, what Blade did, I don't know if people remember the 90s, but superhero movies before then were a campy joke. I mean, you had bat nipples, spandex, and Howard the Duck, which I love Howard the Duck, but it was Howard the Duck, and it was supposed to be a serious-y sci-fi movie. And then Blade comes along, and it's gritty, and there's vampires, and that changed the game for superhero movies in general. So then you get Iron Man, beginning of phase 1, and that changes the game and leads us into this explosion of movies of all of these branches going off. And now we get to another decade after that. We're at the hopefully start of another phase, 2018, and then we have this Black Panther, which not only here's another layer. It actually, with Black Panther, the character himself, in comics, he's existed just kind of filling in the cracks, and he's been on practically every team,
right?
Just about, and and then Wakanda itself, the Wakanda design group. A lot of the weaponry that you see, people assume that it's Tony Stark's or that it's from Stark Industries, but Quinjets, that's Wakanda. For instance, these ectoplasm freezing bullet things, that's Wakanda. So with black culture that is filled, it feels like it's filled in the cracks and done its own thing, and it's helped steer the course. It's there, it's alive. It's with Black Panther, you can't help but know that people are completely interested in all of those other stories. So yes, we want White Tiger. So we want her. She's I believe the term is Latinx. Don't say Latina or Latino. It's Latinx. So yes, I want to explore that. I mean, I want to. Well, we kind of have a Shatterstar possibly in Deadpool 2, but with X-Force, so we can explode that out. And I believe, I still want my Jubilee Mallrats movie, for instance, and I think that we can have that. Black Panther is going to do for Marvel and for television in general what other movies have been setting up for it to do. It's going to explode the universe. In the good way.
In a good way.
Yeah.
You don't want to explode the universe in a bad way.
No.
That might happen in Infinity War. Who knows? That's next.
Hey, everybody dies. That's what I call that movie.
Yeah? You think that's going to be
dies.
just the blanket, just we're going to...
Everybody dies, and then we're going to get a reality wipe with the reality gem.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. But Black Panther, I think, both of us, I certainly a movie that I'd recommend. Like I said, just refreshing to see a movie that's unafraid to just really be real.
Yeah.
For lack of a better word. It's real, it's grounded, still with the fantastical elements, but it brings actual emotion and so many things that I miss in a lot of movies, not just superhero movies, in a lot of movies, especially when you go into genre filmmaking. A lot of times they're like, well, it's an unreal world, so everything has to be heightened and not real. And I think you can do both. You can do both.
It's true Afrofuturism, where it's like it's the roots and the branches at the same time. And even better with that, there's a place for everybody in this movie, and everybody has their place. Everett Ross, would they have been able to do what they did without Everett Ross? Would they have been able to do it without Okoye, without Nakia, even without Ramonda? It's like without M'Baku, who is hilarious, and Winston Duke is amazing. I claim him. Dibs on Winston Duke.
All right,
dibs on
fair
Winston
enough.
Duke. I have no idea if he's dating anyone or if he's into females, but dibs.
Let it be known, this is the official proclamation. Markeia is called Dibs.
Dibs on Winston Duke.
Markeia McCarty, thank you so much for joining me to talk Black Panther. Where can the people find you? Anything that you want to plug?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can find me at Markeia McCarty, and it should say it at the bottom of the screen. I do Marvel movie news, and that's Tuesdays at Popcorn Talk, and I do a number of things with Nerdist. So there are a few videos about Black Panther that are coming out. Today, Women of Wakanda came out, and there will be a few more. I interviewed some of the cast of Black Panther, finding out different things like the Black Panther Challenge, which they raised funds, not Nerdist, but Frederick Joseph from the Boys and Girls Club of Harlem. They raised funds to have kids go see Black Panther.
Oh, that's awesome.
They did that. Over $300,000 raised.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, Markeia, thank you for joining us. And you can actually right now go see Markeia on Movie Fights, which we haven't done yet, which we will have done by the time this is like a Marvel timeline. We're jumping all over the place.
There you go. I'm going to walk out the door right into there.
Exactly. But you can go watch that right now, and you can watch us. We're going to be taking on Infinity War and all the other big movies that are coming out this year right here on Screen Junkies. I'm Dan Murrell. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.